Okay, so today is Sunday, June the 7th, and the year is 2020. And what can we say about the year and it being 2020 and Sunday? Nothing. Life has certainly changed under COVID and under, all the things that are going on. We just all have to know this comes with personal responsibility. And personal responsibility just says that as a person being born in America, what responsibility do you have actually? You know, and do you have a responsibility? I'm recording because, going live on Facebook is different. And they let you go live on Facebook sometimes, and sometimes they don't. But there's so much to talk about and so much overwhelming things to talk about in life. And truly, where do we start? Well, for me, I've always thought that it was critical that we, as a people, have a lane to participate in when it comes to education or public services or anything. I mean, simply just being born in America and this citizenship thing really denotes who you are. But you are who you believe you are. And that's just true. And so here we are and living in 2020. Just washed my hair and pushed it back because this is the first time in life that we can truly say that we are all relevant. And relevancy means that you live through some stuff and life is just real. And know that we all make choices and our choices denote our consequences. And reality says that after you have children, there's a process in which, we've all been mentored or, understand that the process exists. So after you have children, you kind of like put them in public school. But when you start finding out that each state is different, each state is separate into its own, and not every state will give you an opportunity to become and experience real citizenship. What is real citizenship? What is it? It's not a word. It's what it is. Getting through the process and ensuring that that your children have an opportunity, or that you have an opportunity, is real. Because opportunity, it's a knock. And when opportunity knocks, if you're not ready to go, well, you just don't. And then maybe it comes by again. But you're not ready. So if you're not ready, what does that mean? Well, it just simply means that in real life, trials and tribulations are real. And every time you refuse to move forward, well, that just means that time will come again because you didn't move forward then, and you'll have an opportunity to move forward again. And that's just true. And so here we are. And what can I say? I used to, public education, I think that my children in public ed was a real experience. It became a part of my life. It's what I did, going to board meetings and going to community meetings and having conversations as to the support that my children were receiving in the public school system. And then after my last one graduated, it's kind of like I was still helping other families, but it didn't mean as much to the system. I mean, they were aware that I could hold them accountable for my children, but I couldn't hold them accountable for what other people didn't hold them accountable for. So if you had a child kind of like, and you let that child fail, it's kind of like, what didn't you know? What didn't you notice when they said your child was struggling? And they do give you reports. Why is it that Black people seem to get that information about a certain percentage of their people being far below basic, below special education students? even in special ed. I'm trying to understand. This is 2020. Why are we not talking about, the reasons, the real reasons why they treat our children like that? Because they understand. You see, you understand if you go to school for 12 years and then you come out and you can't access resources, you can't get a job. And what is this? Now most of those people who couldn't get a job are still out there working. They're considered essential workers. And then for those who have had the lifestyle of the rich and famous, well, guess what? Some of them were not prepared when the COVID hit. And so they didn't have resources or food stored away, or it's something that prepares for that. Well, people who lived hard all their lives, people who had to make sure that, they had resources for the next month. So when they saw sale items, they purchased them, and they have a pantry and they had reserves. And there are people that live like that. But then there are people that live paycheck to paycheck. And then there are people that, the real issue, I'm going to skip subjects one more time. The real issue is that we don't know how this stuff is being transferred. Nobody really knows. And because people get it, and then people who are connected to them get it. And then people are really dying within 2 weeks. I mean, who knew within 2 weeks of getting an illness, a virus, that you could actually end life? But, it happens. It happens when people get the flu. But, you really can't be out there anymore because it's not like herpes. People would get herpes and pass them from each other, one to one. Okay. But then AIDS came and people still didn't stop. And they would just continue to spread the disease. Even if they knew they had it, they would just continue. It's like crazy. But the mere fact is that, you're all you need. You are what you're looking for. You are the person in the mirror, as people will have woken up or awakened and then been eliminated, so to speak, kind of like Michael Jackson in that song, They Don't Really Care About Us. But as that song was going to come out and he was getting ready to perform it here, they just eliminated it. Seriously, the threat. And then you go back in history. Then you understand the elimination of threats. And then you ask yourself, but right now, I figure I'm just a nobody. I am a single parent who was able to raise her children and not have them be incarcerated, not have them locked up, and understand that there are people who are out there right now, celebrities, people who have been allowed to benefit, people who have had money and who have been able to benefit. And guess what? They now have had the opportunity to speak out without fear because so many of them are speaking out. It's not like when Kaepernick had the nerve to take a knee and said, hey, y'all want me to be out here and entertain you, but then I cannot be assured that my family members or my nephews or, I don't even know if Kaepernick had children, but just the mere fact that he could think about what was going on in the streets. And the mere fact that we do have a system that was carried over from the plantation. And yes, the plantation still exists. Why? Why do I say the plantation exists? Because simply, I cannot affect change as an individual citizen, as a person who understands that when we're looking at all the children who are in the third grade across this nation, and then we can count how many can actually engage in the public education system at third grade level in the third grade. And then we can also look at the ones who cannot engage in the activities, who do not write their name on the paper, who do not follow instructions, who constantly are being disruptive in the classroom. And quite frankly, what should we say about those children? Because those are the children that get left behind. And they're just not left behind in the third grade, no. They're still in the third and the fifth grade at 12th grade. And they've just been pushed through the system. But you see, I have this huge issue with why our system allows people to have 3 months of vacation in the summer and then Easter break and then the winter break. And then, come on now, there are just so many days that the public education system even exists and understand that it is mandated by law. We call it compulsory law. Why? Why have compulsory laws? Well, I'll tell you. It's just important. We can't, on the other hand, just not educate our people. So we're just going to all vote that, hey, people will pay taxes, and with those taxes, we'll furnish them an opportunity to learn, to participate in the system, to become functional citizens. And how do we do that? Well, we'll govern ourselves. How will we govern, they say? Well, quite frankly, we're going to govern by electing people and having people represent what we feel and how we feel. And then for those who are aligned to align the services, well, the story is that, they're participating, but guess what? When they give their time, they're not coming up, they're coming up smelling like roses because their time is worth something. And they share with their friends of the opportunities that they're working to create. But there are people who just have no idea that those opportunities actually exist. I mean, it's just something real, right? So in its realness, some people benefit in America, and then many people don't. And then if God has given you a gift, well, the gift of life, I'll say, the gift to sustain oneself, the gift that if you know that you've been given, that you can sustain yourself with. And people do. I mean, singers do, and people who are gifted on the basketball courts or on the football fields or on the hockey fields, all that's entertainment, right? And we pay lots of money to enjoy ourselves, and those who can share money, in enjoyment or whatever. But then understand this. Those are the people who are paying the taxes, mega taxes. And that's the money that's coming to the community to sustain us. And there are a lot of young rap artists who really don't have good quality music, but they're sharing it, but they make money because, sex sells. When they pay $100,000 in taxes, well, when that money finally makes it back down to your community, and those who choose to step up, and those who are supposed to be doing public good, although the public good is not good anymore, truly. What is the public good? Quite frankly, I really don't know what the public good is, because how can it be good if it's creating dysfunction? And how do we sustain ourselves with public services that, quite frankly, are destroying our youth? I just don't get it anymore. I think we all know that the system is truly broken, but I'm afraid to put my precious gift out there, or my gifts, or my children. I'm afraid that if my children are out there, that, they won't have an opportunity because, quite frankly, people are intimidated by my children's skill level, quite frankly. And you just don't have a skill level if you're unwilling to try. And you just can't tell me that, you don't know how to make a decision, or someone should feel sorry for you because you just, there are things that you just have to do. And I'm willing to help any parent who's willing to help themselves. And that's just real, because there are laws that we all have to follow. There are rules that we all have to abide by. And there are, there are just resources out there that you can attain or grasp or benefit from. But you don't get anything if you are not willing to try. I mean, if it's just so hard, you just can't do it. You know what I'm saying? So you look at the school system, and I look at it today, and at Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, where I graduated, they had eliminated all of the special education rooms where they used to pull the children in and provide individual support. And then they came up with this bullshit about push-in model. And the push-in model means that the resource teacher actually goes and stands back and is able to come and work with children one-on-one as they needed support. But the deal is that, that really just didn't ever happen. It wasn't happening. And they had so many children. And then, to hear them talk. I mean, I participated. I mean, if I could have recorded the IEP meeting that we had the other day, it was, it's kind of funny because, people are puzzled with what your true expectations are. For my true expectations of the public education system is to be able to measure and monitor the benefit of what the lesson that should have been taught, and to be able to ensure that my child was engaging in the process and was participating. But it's just not like that for so many children. And really, once they're past the third grade and they're not at grade level, nobody cares. They become a problem. And people get rid of problems by sending them outside of the classroom, by having an in-house suspension. You know, California, I think in Sacramento City Unified School District, I believe it was in the year of 1989, whatever, a group of parents and community members got together and they filed a complaint against the district. And actually it was founded that they were discriminating against the minority children, as Black and Hispanic or whatever, and that they were suspending and putting them out of public school far too much. And so they came up with this, you know, it was like an agreement of what they would do and who would be the person and how they would measure it. But the reality is that it is the office. It is the federal government that gives you the right to be in public school in the first place. And it's a charge for the federal government to help sustain poor people in large cities and communities so that they can ensure that, you know, that the people are engaged in the process, so to speak. And it just, you know, I'm just confused, basically. I can say I'm really confused as to the limited outcomes that we've allowed to happen and how we have become a prison nation. I remember when my children, in the year 2000, looking at the data, and that's when they had the data for the prisons online, and you could go and actually see how many people were dropping out of the public school system in the year 2000. It was 50,000 children in Los Angeles County a year, 50,000 that would be dropping out of school. I mean, come on now, what should we say? When children are going to a public school and the resources to ensure that you somehow can, you know, take care of yourself and take care of your children and have a quality life, then all of a sudden quality life didn't mean nothing to the people who were creating the pathway for you. It just somehow didn't happen, you know. And I remember, you know, who was it? Oh, I can't think of it. I can think of it in a minute. I have to wait and think of it, wait till it comes to me. But, you know, there are so many artists that were singing about living and having, you know, Black men having, you know, not being there when the welfare man came, or, you know, come on now. The system basically destroyed family life. It didn't create and sustain families. And if you go out of this country, like I lived in Italy for a while, and I lived in Japan when I was younger, and I got to see, I was there long enough to see culture and see how people lived. And so this mask wearing thing, nothing new to people in Japan, because they wore the mask after America bombed Hiroshima and all of the devastation that happened around the atom bomb, it being exploded in the country, on people that still have to live and, you know, still have to survive. And that's why, and we put those Japanese people in internment camps. But come on now, this America began on the backs of Black people, and because they were easily identifiable and you couldn't mistake them. You know what I'm saying? Because if you lay with a Black woman, then, you know, you're going to have a Black child. Basically, it's going to come out with some color, and no matter who you lay with, you're going to come out with some color if you're with somebody Black. And that's just the nature of the game. It's the nature of humanity. It's something you can't get away from. But quite frankly, knowing that, and, you know, white purist people who want just the white race to be successful and all this animosity that's going on right now. But no, that, you know, there were Black people that were not slaves during the slave time. There were Black people with money. There were Black people that owned slaves. And there are people like Candace Owens. And I'm saying this chick really has no grip on real life. She's not old enough to have paid any pittance. She's just reading, and people think that because they read and they get their little degrees from the little white colleges, that life somehow happened for them. No, no. Life happens for people who choose to live. And people who choose to live can write about it and share their stories with you. But guess what? Just because they shared a little bit of information with you doesn't mean that you even understand 1/10 of what they sacrificed or went through. Because we are living in a nation where, hey, it's life. And we all have life realities, trials and tribulations. It's real. I mean, I could go and dig up the information about how you actually can support your child and how you can have an expectation that you will be able to measure and monitor the benefit and have great conversations about what's actually happening for your child, because guess what? You have a right to do that. But when people accept letter grades of F, I think my phone, my screen is freezing and it just goes dark and then I look real black for a minute. But when people accept the letter grades of F and they get nothing until the next year, and then it's another F, and then the next year it's another F, but all the time they are still getting promoted to the next grade level, I'll say there's something terribly wrong with that. And there's something terribly wrong that, the offer of a FAPE would be a free and appropriate public education. And I keep on saying, the offer is whatever the parent has agreed to. And so if the parent has an issue or your child has an issue with behavior and the school district's trying to work with you with the child's behavior, well, hell, that's what you agreed to. But if you're having conversations about academic achievement and, and how to support your child, and you're coming back consistently and talking about what you're doing and how you're measuring the benefit of that wonderful opportunity to learn, then that's what you're agreeing to. So MLA writing and executive functioning skills and all those wonderful things that children actually can learn are real. And then people can be great communicators. They can be effective communicators, and they can be self-sustaining if they learn skills. But in other countries like Italy or Japan, they realize when children are not going to progress beyond the 8th grade, and then they start teaching them a skill. Well, here in America, when children are learning and there doesn't look like they're going to be able to sustain themselves, well, they're just promoted through the system. And then they come and arrest them right before they turn 18. So then they put them in juvenile hall. And then they hold them there. And the dysfunction of, I don't know, it's crazy. Some of the things I see on the news and some of the way that those children are being forced to live is insanity to me. But then I understand that if you have a drug baby and the child goes to a white family, they could get upwards of $1,700 a month. But if the child goes to a black family, it could be less than $200 because of kinship. And what is kinship? Well, let me break it down to you. Since you don't know who your great-great-great-grandfather is, because he might have been brought here on a slave ship and your family sold off, you can only really go back, 3 or 4 generations. And that's for the majority of people who were, brought here, and they say descendants of slaves, and who were basically given freedom by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, and by the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's really all you got to know. But then when you know other things that are so painful to the mind, to understand that people were advocating for the rights of others or people who look like them, well, they'd just be snuffed out and it'd be no problem. How you can live in Las Vegas and know that this is the entertainment capital of the world, and yet there is no Moulin Rouge and there is no Cotton Club, and Black people don't party beyond 8 o'clock in the evening. And hell, they don't even socialize beyond that unless there is an event that, oh, well, we do have elected Black people here in Las Vegas. There's a lot of them. But then understanding that the outcomes don't represent that they are even living here. The nature of the game is that the data doesn't demonstrate that the children have a basic opportunity to learn, because less than 330 African-American children born in poverty had access to early Head Start. And the number it just boggles the mind when you hear Black people who are participating on boards or commissions or who have been appointed to say that Head Start is for white people, or, hey, I can't understand why the resources that were allocated for the poor and, like free and reduced lunch and all those other wonderful things. And like, the magnet schools really don't have poor children. And the poor children, well, I really can't even understand how to access the data. And when I ask for how many third graders are at grade level, well, I don't get a response. And then I ask for, well, if the children are not at grade level, what are you doing for them? And then I can't get a response. And so basically, they're telling me that they don't have to respond to, they don't even know what goes on with Title I. Well, I thought that was the moneymaker. I thought that was the ability to count the number of children who were actually qualified for free and reduced services or the free lunch program, that's how you would determine how you, and what services would actually happen. But no, it doesn't happen that way. And I'm confused, but I can only say this one thing. If it hadn't been for Donald Trump and the COVID-19, we would not be talking about the most important things in America. And that's who doesn't have access and who's being denied access. And just how do we turn that around? I don't know. But stay tuned. Follow me on YouTube. That's Darlene Anderson or Darlene Boots Anderson on my Facebook. And I'm even on Instagram. That's Darlene Anderson, 1958 or something like that. But anyways, I'll say, I've enjoyed waking up, and I hope you'll enjoy waking up and understanding that even if you're not out there protesting, you can't be like Candace Owens, thinking that because you read it, it's somehow true. And you have to understand that if we were all given an equal start, that perhaps there would be some competition. And know that knowledge is everything, and having basic level skills allows you to do what I'm doing, and which is the same thing Candace is doing, and that is just talking about how you see it. So I'm going to end for now. I'm 29 minutes and 36 seconds into the broadcast. Say for now and say follow me and subscribe. Until then, have a great day and a great weekend, and look forward to waking up, awakening.